yours. I just washed this.
Oh, whose is whose?
Maybe I can tell. Feels soft. Smell.
Fresh.
If it feels really soft and smells April fresh, it's got to be Downy, so it's mine.
Downy rinses in softness, freshness, helps rinse out static cling.
Well, I'm getting Downy. Hear that, honey?
April Fresh Downy.
Al Austin, Larry Schmidt, Don Shelby. The most dynamic investigative reporting team on Twin Cities television. Experienced reporters behind the scenes on tough assignments, digging for the facts that spell out crime and corruption.
I think we want to explode some myths about life in the Twin Cities, about life in Minnesota. We want to bring out the truth.
Channel 4's new investigative reporting team. If it's a tough assignment, chances are they're working on it.
WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
From WCCO Television, the Northwest's leading news station, this is the 10 p.m. report.
Good evening, everyone. In our news this Saturday night, the basketball Gophers scored a major upset today in Iowa City, defeating the Hawkeyes on their home court. In Arden Hills tonight, a camper truck carrying 13 people went up into flames, but luckily no one was seriously injured. In Durand, Wisconsin, a former prisoner of war talks about his ordeal of captivity and that of the American hostages. And in the Twin Cities, our winterless winter yields a record-breaking warm day. Dr. Walt will be along later with Sunday's weather forecast. But first tonight, word from former hostage Joe Hall today in West Germany. Words of praise and words of pain.
Of course, Joe Hall's roots are in the Little Falls area of north-central Minnesota. His family is there, including his sister, Helen McLennan. Now, she spoke by telephone with us late this afternoon. Helen says she received a call from her brother in Wiesbaden, West Germany, earlier today. And Hall told his sister, quoting now, "I am very proud of President Carter and the U.S. government's handling of this situation. I feel nobody could have done more. I have the utmost respect for President Carter and his administration for getting me out of Iran alive. I have never been as proud for being an American and a member of the United States Army." By contrast, Hall was not quite so kind about the State Department's handling of the former hostages in West Germany. Hall says he has no time at all to rest, no time to relax. He says the State Department officials have something planned every single hour. Hall says privacy right now is foremost on his mind. In fact, he says he's housed now in a room at Wiesbaden with 3 other former hostages, and that he has not had a moment of privacy for the past 15 months. The other former hostage who grew up in Minnesota is Bruce Langen, native of Odin. And today, for the first time, Langen talked to reporters.
Magnificent. Their spirits are high, they're proud, they're free Americans, they're surrounded by beautiful people.
This is Volker.
How do you feel about the Iranian people now?
That's a matter, I think, of individual conscience.
But you personally?
How about you? That also is a reflection of the kind of treatment we've had and the kind of association we've had in the past. I think that's the kind of discussion I'd rather not have here.
Bruce Langen was the highest-ranking diplomat in Iran at the time of the embassy takeover back in November 1979. Today in Wiesbaden, other hostages came out to test their newfound freedom and to talk about the Iranians.
It's not really hatred, it's more of a just pity mixed with indifference.
Right.
It's their problem, they gotta live with it.
Well, throw me, choke me, kick me in the head, kick me in the body, punch me in the face, punch me in the body, throw me against concrete walls, things like that.
And what's your view about your captors now?
What's my view about them? Buy Iraqi war bonds.
We have a sense of a great deal of pride that we beat them because we walked out of it, all of us. And we all walked away from the experience and they didn't get us.
Last week, a professor from the University of Minnesota went to Germany for the hostage return. Professor Hamilton McCubbin talked to reporters today about what he saw.
McCubbin is an expert in family stress and is part of a national task force that was set up to monitor the condition of the 52 Americans. In Germany, he saw all the former hostages, but talked with only 6 of them. From what he heard, the harassment, the abuse of the captives was not systematic, not necessarily organized, and not directed at only the older Americans.
We really don't have that feeling that the older suffered more. I think there were more incidents of abuse among the older, but has more to do with the role that they played. In other words, if they thought that they had information, Secret Service type information or CIA type information, those are the ones that they focused on. But it seems that their abuse was really random, it's not very systematic.
There have been questions raised about honoring the freed Americans and big parades with a lot of hoopla. Is that really good for them? McCubbin believes it is, at least for a little while.
There needs to be a time when the country communicates to them that they were missed, they were appreciated, and were elated to have you home. As some of the returnees pointed out, they wondered whether or not America was even concerned about them, or even interested in them. And this is one means of communicating that we do care, we did care, and we're elated for them to be home.
McCubbin added that the sooner the Americans return to a normal life pattern, the better off they're going to be. According to his conversations, many of the Americans look forward to returning to government service. Throughout the hostage ordeal, families of the Americans made numerous depressing trips to Washington, D.C., but the trips they're making now are happy ones. Tomorrow, they will be reunited with their loved ones when the 52 freed Americans fly into the Capitol. At 10:45 tomorrow morning, the former hostages will arrive at the White House for a quick visit with President Reagan. After that, it's on to West Point for a private reunion with their families. Several Minnesotans are in the Capitol waiting for tomorrow. Chip Langan left the Twin Cities this afternoon to greet his father, Bruce. Dorothy and Zane Hall of Little Falls are there to meet their son, Joe, and other relatives plan to attend the private reception at West Point on Monday.
The families of the former hostages, of course, are hearing the horror stories now, stories of torture, abuse, and excruciating harassment. The spokeswoman for the hostage family organization addressed that issue today on behalf of many of the other families.
I think I take a very simple view of it. It's over. There's nothing we can do about it. It happened, and it's over. It ended on a very balanced note when all is said and done. We were extremely lucky. I think the world was extremely lucky.
The former hostages will not be seeing very much of President Ronald Reagan tomorrow. The president is taking a very low-keyed approach to the first day home. He says he wants to stay out of the way for a time.
Well, basically, I'm going to explain why I'm staying out of the way when they go to meet them. And I think this is the time for them, the hostages and the prisoners of war, the freed prisoners and their families, to get together without any interference by me.
And at 1 o'clock tomorrow, the Americans with their families will be traveling to West Point Military Academy in New York State. There, they'll have a day of privacy with each other. No celebrities, no dignitaries, no news reporters allowed to join them. Chris Kelly reports now on the preparations underway for that elaborate gathering.
In the little villages surrounding West Point, there are yellow ribbons tied to nearly everything. Some cadets here are even planning more personal gestures.
Dear Mr. Mealy, our prayers have been answered. We are especially blessed to have you here at West Point. Welcome back to the USA, and may God bless you and keep you in his eternal care.
These two cadets brought their 52 specially designed messages in a shoebox, which will be among a variety of gifts sent to the reunited families. They will stay in the genteel 52-year-old Hotel Thayer, which has been completely booked by the State Department until Tuesday. Chefs today were busy preparing special menus, turkeys, vegetables, lobsters, and more.
Veal scallopini, surf and turf, prime ribs, shrimp cocktails, that type of thing, assorted pastries for dessert.
The bartenders have been told not to ask any questions or to seek autographs, and drinks are on the house. The reunion will be strictly private, and this afternoon, military police began sealing off the grounds outside the hotel. When the families arrive tomorrow afternoon, Cadet Margaret Bridgman will ring the chapel bells, just like she did during the days of captivity.
None of them cracked. None of them told their captors anything. They defied them in every way they could. To me, they're heroes.
They won't be treated like heroes here. That will come later. Here, they will just be husbands and fathers and brothers again for the first time in an awfully long time. Chris Kelly, CBS News, West Point, New York.
Saturday evening at 10:30 on Channel 4, you're going to see one of the Old West's most famous gun battles on the gunfight at OK Corral.
You and me step out into the street alone. Oh, no. You don't sucker me into that.
Burt Lancaster is Wyatt Earp. Kirk Douglas is Doc Holliday. They join together to wipe out the Clinton gang on Gunfight at OK Corral on the Saturday movie on 4. Every evening, Channel 4 plays favorites.
Close Up is a program that brings high school students to Washington.
And what would happen if gold would rise too high, or if the value of the dollar would drop too low?
Gold has only been... Close Up brings all kinds of students from all kinds of backgrounds face to face with the living human government.
Will you continue to look toward foreign nations for our energy uses?
Close Up. Contact your high school principal or write to us.
The return of the former hostages has prompted a Durand, Wisconsin man to reflect on his days as a POW. Walter Gillis was a prisoner of the Japanese for 1,226 days during World War II. He says he's a little jealous of the attention the hostages are getting, but he rejoices in their homecoming and is glad their ordeal is over. Karen Boros has his story.
Walter Gillis, in the front row to the right, was a Wisconsin farm boy when he was shipped to the Philippines 6 months before Pearl Harbor. 6 months after Pearl Harbor, he was a prisoner of war. Gillis had not thought much about those days until he saw the American hostages released. Now he chokes back tears and recalls events nearly 40 years past.
Yeah, it was like hell. Do a lot of praying. And say, Lord, one more day, one more day.
Gillis kept a diary. He recorded 3 Christmases in prison camp. September 12, 1945, freedom. Thousands, not just 52, headed home. Gillis hitched a ride as far as Red Wing and called a brother who did not know if Gillis was dead or alive.
So he got all carried away, and he said, we thought you were dead. No, I'm not dead. I'm in Red Wing, Minnesota. And I'm looking for a ride home.
Walter Gillis wanted to have his picture taken next to his flag. For the last 35 years, no matter where he's lived, Gillis flies the flag day and night. Flying the flag and walking free for him were 2 of the best parts of coming home. With photographer Jeff Copper, Karen Boros, WCCO Television News, Durand, Wisconsin.
Gillis has this bit of advice for the returning hostages. He says they should forget those 444 days.
And in other news tonight, a motorhome accident in Arden Hills injured 7 people, none of them seriously. The State Highway Patrol says there were 13 people inside this motorhome, which was westbound on Interstate 694. They said the vehicle apparently struck a guardrail and then burst into flame. The motorhome was destroyed. Arden Hills Fire Department officials do say that all of the occupants got out of the burning vehicle on their own. All were treated and released. $20 million. That's what George Hansen of St. Paul is suing for as a result of the MGM Grand Hotel fire in Las Vegas, Nevada. Hansen has filed suit charging the hotel and the city with negligence in the fire that killed 85 people. Hansen escaped from a room on the 19th floor. His lawyer is anticipating a long, drawn-out legal battle to determine exactly who ought to pay damages. And word is out tonight that Walter Mondale has decided not to run for the United States Senate in 1982. A copyright story in Sunday's Minneapolis Tribune does say that the former vice president has also made it clear he is preparing himself for a possible run in the '84 presidential campaign.
Tonight, Hennepin County's operating engineers still have plans to return to work on Monday. The 270 snowplow and heavy equipment operators of Local 49 voted not to go on strike today, even though the county's latest contract offer was unacceptable. The engineers say a 9% pay raise in the contract is not enough to keep up with double-digit inflation. Both sides will meet with the state mediators early next week to try to work out a settlement. The Polish government tonight admitted that a one-day strike by the Solidarity Labor Union hit industry squarely in the pocketbook. Officials say the strike cost the country $70 million in lost production. This was the second Saturday the Polish workers either struck or failed to show up for work as part of a determined effort to secure a 5-day work week. The Big Brothers Big Sisters group of Brainerd owes Uncle Sam about $4,000 in taxes. The IRS says the organization allegedly failed to pay withholding taxes for secretarial help during 1978. The director of the nonprofit group says the organization is broke. And tax dodgers in the neighboring states of Minnesota could be stung by agents soon sent out by the State Revenue Service. 24 auditors are going to be hired in the next 2 years to track down tax dodgers. Officials say most of the losses come from income and sales tax, but in particular, they want to nail residents from neighboring states who fail to report income earned in Minnesota. An estimated $340 million in tax is cheated out of Minnesota every year.
Easy and hurried marriage annulments were denounced by the Pope today. The pontiff saying there's an alarming increase in recent years of annulments granted by courts of the Roman Catholic Church, a majority of which have taken place in the United States. Pope John Paul II saying that thousands of annulments have a negative effect on preparing for marriage. The Church, of course, does not accept divorce.
This man can help you reduce your taxes to the lowest possible legal limit.
Hi, I'm Paul Strassel. Over the past few years, I've crisscrossed the country talking with a lot of people about questions they have concerning taxes. I'll be providing you with some of these answers on the 5 p.m. report and the morning report here on Channel 4. Join me and save money by paying only those taxes you're legally required to pay.
Paul Strassel's tax tips on the morning report at 7 and the 5 p.m. report, Monday through Friday, here on Channel 4.
The John Davidson Show is really rolling this week.
Oh, I loved it.
The singer Crystal Gale, Beverly Sills, and Ed Asner.
It's only the beginning, baby.
Plus Bill Rafferty, Skip Stevenson, and Kathy Lee Crosby. There's more, wait! And you'll enjoy Maureen McGovern's music and Cheryl Teague's beauty.
I mean, this is fun.
There's also JR himself, Larry Hagman, and some surprises.
Cliff Wilson!
All on this week's John Davidson Show.
Yeah, sleeping single in a double bed, thinking over things I wish I said.
Our unseasonable weather has made for a switch on the sports scene. Instead of cross-country skiing over the golf course at Baker Park Reserve, as would be normal in January, the golfers took over today. About 300 die-hard golfers came out when they heard the course would be open, and most of them came here from the Twin Cities and suburbs. Some were more determined than others.
In fact, we put on a golf alert on Wednesday for Friday afternoon, which didn't work out well because of our professional jobs got in the way. But we knew then that Saturday, if the weather held for Saturday, we'd be out one place or another. And we would have played even on a course if it might not have been open. But we found out that this one was open and wanted to be more legitimate. So.
No carts were allowed on the course, and managers thought about providing hammers for pounding in the tees, but they weren't needed. The course manager says he may open again tomorrow if it looks like the weather's going to hold. And here is the man who can answer that question for all those hundreds of golfers who want to go golfing tomorrow.
Well, it'll be a little chillier. But still, I think fairly playable if you don't mind playing in the 40s. Imagine the temperature dropping 15 degrees, being in the 40s in Minnesota. Jim Gilbert was calling, saying some of the things he's been hearing reports of, like moths flying, chipmunks coming out of hibernation, the trumpeter swans trumpeting, the woodpeckers peckering, or whatever they do, and a lot of ducks. People are reporting ducks flying around. They're not actually flying north. They're just looking for open water. Ducks aren't that dizzy. They can sort of be cool and hang this far south, but it has been an unusual day, to put it mildly. It's a pun, I think.
I think that is.
49 was the record high for today. There was no doubt that was going to be broken. The question was, what were we going to do it for the month? This on the anniversary of one of the coldest days in the history of the United States. Typical records back in 1963, the day Lake Michigan froze solid. Nashville, 15 below zero. You had to go all the way to Siberia to find anything that cold around here today. Look at what the temperature did. It started out at 25. Now, that's 4 above the normal high. The sun came up and bang, it took off into the 40s and then into the 50s. Only 8 times in the last 130 to 150 years have January temperatures in the Twin Cities hit into the 50s. Did we break the all-time January temperature record? No. We missed by 1 degree or 2 degrees, depending on whether you use the more recent or the historical record of 58 or 59 degrees. But it was still very few complaints. 57 is what it did. That low, we mentioned, 25 degrees. It was a gorgeous day to be outside. I started off this morning in San Diego, and it turns out by the time when I landed here in the Twin Cities, it was warmer than San Diego. It's a little cooler than there now, but 44 isn't bad. 48 right outside on the mall on our WCCO thermometer. The barometer's low and continuing to fall with southeast winds, and that's because there's a cold front coming at us. It's going to blow away some of the unusually warm air. These are just a few of the 42 record highs around the upper Midwest today. Had trouble even stuffing some of them on. 56, for instance, at St. Cloud was the warmest ever they've had in January. 66 at Sioux Falls, likewise. 70 down around the Sioux City area. 52 up at Fargo. 55 at Madison. And on and on and on goes the litany of warmth. Peering in a little bit closer in the weather net, The warm front came across the St. Croix a little later, so they only made it up into the upper 40s. But St. Peter, 61 degrees, just about the warmest around, although 68 over at Redwood Falls in the southwest. 80 popped up on the map today at Wichita Falls, Texas. The 70s came as far north as Yankton, South Dakota. The sub-zero readings were so far off the map I can't even point to it, but there is a little bit of cooler air now moving into Montana, and there is going to be a change in the weather, which we will be talking about as we move along in the presentation. Here's the current cloud situation. Some high clouds are moving in, but this huge area of clear is what we had last night. One of the reasons that people were able to see a rather spectacular fireball, which is sort of a super-duper meteor, pronounce it correctly, that came crashing into the Earth's atmosphere about 11 o'clock last night. Got a weather, maybe this is an astronomy quiz. Just how fast do meteors hit the Earth's atmosphere? Ponder that while we take a look at the rest of tonight's meteorological quiz. One of the questions is it going to snow? Well, not tonight. Will it rain? No, we'll do that either. But we might begin seeing something on the radar by late tomorrow because there is a front in our future. You can't even find the real chilly one on the map. We have a weak cold front coming through right now. By tomorrow night, some more January-type air will be moving into town. But that's 70 at Yankton. Just to give you an idea how screwy things are, it was warmer than San Diego, San Francisco, Las Vegas, Phoenix, El Paso, New Orleans, Apalachicola, Atlanta, Tampa, Miami, and 68, the highest in the state at Redwood Falls. Craziness. Tomorrow, it'll be becoming a little more or less crazy. That first weak cold front will go through, keeping our temperatures in the 40s. The January air will be sweeping down, bringing up to 3 inches of snow in portions of North Dakota and some wet snow in northern Minnesota. We could get snow flurries in here by tomorrow night and continuing on to Monday, but accumulating snow seems to be highly unlikely indeed. As far as tomorrow's highs, okay, no 80s, but there'll still be plenty of 70s in Texas, and you can see the 40s will hang in over the southern part of the Gopher State, 30s in the northern part as we go into a cooling trend. And we might see near or even slightly below normal temperatures for the middle of the week. But in terms of a real persistent cold snap, no way. We're just going to have a quick return to normal. Some of the record highs today, just to take another close-up look, 68 at the Falls and so forth. It's been an incredible day. You'll probably have to wait another 20 years to see something quite like this. And the overnight lows tonight, well, I just thought we'd go back into our archive to show you what winter should look like in January. Wrong. The forecast looks nothing like that. Warm tonight, temperatures barely getting below freezing, 35 right outside our front door here. Partly cloudy will be the skies tomorrow, partly cloudy. And the winds will swing into the northwest. The temperatures will start going down in the afternoon after that mid-40s in the mid-morning. And the extended outlook, we said that slight chance of light snow or flurries on Monday, and the temperatures cooling down to about where they're supposed to be for a while during the week. And oh yes, meteors, they come zipping into the atmosphere even faster than old Superman can go. Sometimes they may hit as high as 160,000 miles an hour.
Pretty fast.
Absolutely.
I want to tell you some more about that meteor story.
Please
A
do.
lot of people called us about that. They were looking up into the sky last night, and they saw bright lights bursting into multicolor flames. The phenomenon, as you said, was seen in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Dakotas. One official says it is meteors striking the Earth's upper atmosphere, but for a while there last night, nobody had any explanation. Mike?
All right, and coming up next, the North Stars are greasing the Edmonton Oilers, and the Gophers shoot the Hawkeyes right out of the Iowa skies. Mark Rosen and the sports coming up in a moment.
I'll get you. How are you doing? I'm making sure he isn't hit. Oh, hurry up. He isn't hit. You just keep a lookout. You are not performing an operation. Shh, shh, shh. Just you keep a lookout. Oh, go move on. Oh!
Doctor in the House, Sunday night at 11 here on Channel 4.
Central America, our unknown neighbor to the south. Yet much is happening there politically and economically. I'm Steve Doyle, and I recently toured the American Embassy in Guatemala City, spent a day with Americans still involved with the Panama Canal, and went on an airlift mission with the Minnesota National Guard. Join me for these special stories beginning Wednesday on PM Magazine.
PM Magazine.
I don't know if Edmonton is too much of a contest, but I'm glad we won.
Well, they're winning anyway.
We're
These
winning.
are the teams the North Stars should dominate, and they're doing it in a big way tonight. The Stars
in a blowout over the Oilers, leading 6-1 midway through the final period. Fans hardly settled into their seats at the Sports Center when the North Stars went up 1-0. Just 20 seconds into the game, Al McAdams scored his 13th goal of the year, and it was off to the races for Minnesota. Still in the first period, the Stars went up 2-0 when Tim Young drew the puck back to Greg Smith, who fired in his 3rd goal of the year. The Stars really made their shots count in that first period. On their 8th shot of the game, Bobby Smith scored an easy open net goal, making it 3-0, Smith's 22nd of the year. McCarthy scored for the North Stars his 18th, and Ken Solheim scored his 1st goal as a North Star on a quick wrist shot, making it 5-0. Tim Young also scored for the Stars, making it 6-0. Right now it is 6-1, another sellout crowd at the Met Sports Center tonight. Let's check the scores. North Stars play Calgary 7 o'clock Monday night at the Sports Center. Los Angeles beat Boston 6-4. Charlie Simmer scored 3 goals, now has 49 in 50 games for the Kings. Tonight, Mike Bossy of the Islanders equaled Rocket Richard's NHL mark of 50 goals in 50 games, scoring twice as the Islanders beat Quebec 7-4. It was Detroit 6, Colorado 2. Buffalo defeated Washington. Montreal 6, Philadelphia 3. Pittsburgh defeated Calgary 4-3. Toronto defeated Hartford. The Rangers 7, Vancouver 5. St. Louis leading Chicago 2-0 in the second. In Ann Arbor, Michigan tonight, that's in Michigan someplace, the Gopher hockey team completed a weekend sweep of the Wolverines, winning 7-3, 4th straight victory for the Gophers. Kevin Hartzell scored twice for Minnesota. The Gophers return home next weekend, battling North Dakota for first place in the WCHA, Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's where that game was played tonight. Well, there's no truth to the rumor that the Gopher basketball team is considering playing the rest of their games on the road this year. Minnesota continued its Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde routine, rising up to defeat 8th-ranked Iowa 60-48 in Iowa City this afternoon. The Gophers have far and away played their best ball on the road this year, and this victory today was their most important to date. The Gophers shot 75% from the field in that second half, and what an afternoon for Randy Brewer, who demonstrated a nice outside shooting touch for 2 of his 17 points. Brewer, who has had his problems shooting this year, never looked better today. He was unstoppable inside. This basket made it 38-36 Gophers, a lead they added on as the game wore on. Jim Dutcher's bench came through at crucial times. Example, Zebedee Howell, seldom used this year, making one of 3 big plays, hitting the boards to power in Ben Coleman's missed shot. Iowa has perhaps the toughest pressing defense in the country, but the Gophers handled it down the stretch, looking for the open man, and when 7'2" Brewer gets this open, the result is always the same. Minnesota shut down Iowa's inside game, forcing Vince Brookings to supply the majority of the Hawkeyes' offense. He scored 18 points, the only Iowa player to finish in double figures. Darrell Mitchell put the game out of reach with a slam dunk as the Gophers went on to defeat Iowa for the first time after 4 straight losses to the Hawkeyes, 60-48. Minnesota now 3-3 in the Big Ten. Iowa drops to 4-2. The so-called home court advantage meant absolutely nothing in the Big Ten today. Iowa was not the only team to bite the dust. Purdue was knocked out of a first-place tie, losing at home to Michigan State. And try and figure this one out. Illinois, also at home, lost to Wisconsin 54-45. Ohio State, the only Big Ten team to win at home, beating Michigan 69-63. Indiana, on the road, buried Northwestern 93-56. Elsewhere, DePaul defeated LaSalle. It was Notre Dame over Maryland. North Carolina defeated Georgia Tech. Connecticut defeated Georgetown. Florida over Alabama. Arizona State defeated Arizona. Duke over Clemson. Tonight, LSU defeated Tennessee. Kentucky 78-64 over Vanderbilt. Locally, Augsburg defeated St. Olaf. McAllister over Concordia. Hamlin defeated St. Mary's, and Golden Valley Lutheran over Minneapolis Community College. The University of Minnesota women's basketball program received a big shot in the arm tonight as the Gophers rolled past 15th-ranked Kansas State 70-54 at Williams Arena. Leading the way for the Gophers was Debbie Hunter, the sophomore guard from Cloquet. Debbie, number 11 there, led Minnesota with 23 points. Hunter has a knack of performing well against Kansas State. She sank the winning free throws earlier this year in a 71-70 victory over Kansas State. Ellen Mosier's team is now 15-4, and they were hopeful that a victory tonight would boost them into the top 20. Minnesota defeating Kansas State 70-54. The Gophers' next game is Tuesday night at Iowa State. They return home to play Iowa next Friday at Williams Arena. Iowa State, the second-rated gymnastics team in the country, came away with a convincing victory in a triangular meet at Williams Arena this afternoon. And let's see, one other score here today. Well, there's the gymnastics right behind me there. There's Ron Gallimore of Iowa State. And he was performing here in the floor exercise. And he's the son of the late Willie Gallimore, the one-time great for the Chicago Bears. Gallimore had to settle for second place in the all-around today behind teammate Mike Lyons, but nationally, Gallimore is rated third. Brian Meeker of the University of Minnesota won the vaulting competition, but finished sixth overall. The Gophers' top overall finisher was Dan Price, who came in third. Iowa State won the meet with 280 points. Gophers were second, and Michigan came in third. And let us not forget, there's a football game tomorrow. Final one, the Super Bowl, Philadelphia and Oakland.
Oh, yeah, Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Okay.
100 million people will be watching that.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. That's our report for this Saturday night, January 24th.
Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, no, you caught me with static cling. Doesn't it look awful? That's why you won't ever catch me without Static Guard. Just spray and static cling's gone. It's incredible. Works on everything. And now you can carry this new personal size with you. It's so handy to use anytime, any place, so you never have to worry about embarrassing static cling. Get Static Guard in both the regular size and this great new take-along size to always look your best.